There we go. Now my mic's on. So good. Welcome to the August 27th, 2026 edition of the Board of Directors meeting for the Denton County Transportation Authority. Calling the meeting to order at 10:02. With that, we will start with an invocation, and we'll ask my friend Caesar, who will lead us in that.
Okay. Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day and bringing us all together to do the work of the Denton County Authority. We ask that you give us discernment and wisdom to do the work for the people of Denton County. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor to Texas flag. Pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. One quick introduction. Want to introduce Courtney Moore. She's filling in for Joe Gorfita, our attorney. So good morning. Welcome. Thank you. Paul, go ahead. It's all good. Did you have the late realization about the corporate exit that I did?
That was part of not all of it.
All right, so moving on, public comment. The agenda provides an opportunity for citizens to address the DCTA Board of Directors on any agenda items or other matters relating to DCTA. Each speaker will be given a total of 3 minutes to address any item. Anyone wishing to speak should be courteous and cordial. Speakers making personal, impertinent, profane, or slanderous remarks will be removed from the meeting. Unauthorized remarks from the audience, stamping of feet, whistles, yells, clapping, or similar demonstrations also will not be permitted. Citizens that are not able to participate in person must email their comments to kmorris-perkins@dcta.net no later than 3 p.m. on Wednesday, August 26th to ensure that their comments will be distributed to board members. Board members are not permitted to take any action on any subject raised by a speaker during public comments. However, DCTA Board of Directors may have the item placed on a future agenda for action, refer the item to the DCTA administration for further study or action, and briefly state existing DCTA policy, or provide a brief statement or factual information in response to the inquiry. Do we have any public comments? All right, thank you. Moving on to consent agenda. Got a number of items on consent. Consider approval of regular meeting minutes dated July 23rd, 2026. Consider approval of task order number 3 with River North Transit LLC DBA via transportation for Go Zone member city demand response service for the period of 1 year, beginning October 1st, 2026 through September 30th, 2027, in an amount not to exceed $12,232,863. Number 3, consider approval of task order number 4 with River North Transit LLC DBA via transportation for City of Frisco Go Zone demand response service for a period of 1 year, beginning October 1st, 2026 through September 30th, 2027, in an amount not to exceed $2,900,232. Number 4, consider approval of task order number 4 with Z-Trip for City of Frisco demand response paratransit service for a period of 1 year, beginning October 1st, 2026 through September 30th, 2027, in an amount not to exceed $257,500. Number 5, consider approval of task order number 6 with Lyft for City of Frisco demand response paratransit services for a period of 1 year, beginning October 1st, 2026 through September 30th, 2027, in an amount not to exceed $11,845. Number 6, gosh, gonna read through all these. Number 6, approval of task order number 7 with Lyft for Coppell Mobility Services for on-demand ride share for a period of a year, October 1, 2026 through September 30, 2027, not to exceed $73,000. Number 7, approval of a task order number 8 with Lyft for University of North Texas late night service from October 1st, 2026 through September 30, 2027, not to exceed $118,450. Number 8, consider approval of the second amended and restated interlocal agreement with the City of Allen for Collin County Rides Transit Services for a period of 3 years, beginning October 1st, 2026 through September 30th, 2029, with the option for one additional 2-year period expiring September 30th, 2031, an amount not to exceed $856,473, and authorize the Chief Executive Officer to execute such agreement. Number 9, consider approval of the second amended and restated interlocal agreement with Town of Fairview for Collin County Rides Transit Services for a period of 3 years, beginning October 1st, 2026 through September 30th, 2029, with an option for one additional 2-year period expiring September 30th, 2031, an amount not to exceed $95,164, and authorize the CEO to execute such contract. Number 10, consider approval of task order number 3 with Z-Trip for Collin County Rides Transit Services for a period of 1 year, beginning October 1st, 2026 through September 30th, 2027, an amount not to exceed $360,630. Number 11, consider approval of task order number 5 with Lyft for Collin County Rides Transit Services for a period of 1 year, beginning October 1st, 2026 through September 30th, 2027, an amount not to exceed $12,566. We're almost there. Number 12, consider authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to execute a renewal of the Microsoft Enterprise Agreement with SHI Government Solutions, Inc. through the Texas Department of Information Resources Cooperative Contract for a period of 3 years, beginning in September 1st, 2026 through August 31st, 2029, an amount not to exceed $174,341.64. And number 13, consider authorizing the CEO to execute an agreement with Sales Tax Assurance LLC, DBA HDL Companies for sales and use tax compliance review, recovery, and consulting services for a period of 3 years, beginning in September 1st, 2026 through August 31st, 2029, with an option for 2 additional 1-year terms through August 31st, 2031, in an amount not to exceed a fixed cost of $7,200 annually plus contingency for recovered sales taxes. And finally, number 14, consider authorizing the CEO to execute 2 purchase agreements with Swiftly through Vertosoft LLC, utilizing the interlocal purchasing system, contract number 250106 for onboard technology, hardware installation, commissioning, and licensing for 9 bus fleet vehicles in an amount of $160,512.13. Does anybody have any questions about any of these items or wish to move anything off of the consent onto action?
Did you read those again?
I'll let you read them again.
Oh, his lips stuck.
I like the motion to approve. Would you like the water?
I'm good. Thank you, though. Thank you so much, though.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to our regular agenda, item number 1, discuss and consider approval of monthly financial statement, grants report, and investment report for the period ending June 30th, 2026, and receive an update regarding finance operations.
Good morning, members of the board. So this morning, my name is Lakeisha Williams. I'm the Senior Manager of Accounting, and staff recommends the board approve the monthly financial statement, grant report, and investment report for the period ending June 30th, 2026. So first off, I'll be presenting at a high-level overview of the Q3 financials, and I'll touch base on a couple of items within each area of the expenses and revenues, and a snapshot showing where we are for Q3. However, you do have a more detailed look into the financials in your packet that is set before you that you can follow along with. So starting with the revenues, as you can see on the first bar, we have the sales tax revenue, which is performing ahead of expectations and reflecting a strong consumer spending, and is estimated to be roughly around $42.5 million by the end of the fiscal year. Next, we have the federal, state, and operating grants. The grants are currently ahead of our year-to-date budget projections, which is driven by our quarterly drawdowns of operational grant funds. I'm going to move over to the fifth bar, which is our passenger revenue. Passenger revenue incomes generated from specialized transit contracts or agreements, and slightly behind the year-to-date budget due to timing of revenue recognitions as fare collections are recorded 1 month in arrears. So Q4, we'll start to see that number, that gap between those two decrease. On to our expenditures, we have the salary and wages and benefits that is trending behind budget due to timing of hires and the vacant positions. And on the fourth bar, we have our insurance, which is trending lower in Q3 because we're currently waiting on the rail liability insurance invoice from DART to be received. So overall, we have a snapshot of our total revenues and other incomes. We have the year-to-date budget, which is the tick mark that you'll see in the gold color. That represents the 75% of where we should be for Q3. So currently on the total revenues and other incomes, we are 76.9, which is 1.2 million in our favor. And on the total operating expenses, it's also less depreciation. The yellow year-to-date budget tick mark on that far screen is also representing the 75% mark of where we are for Q3. And we are currently under budget at 6.3%, which is 8.7 million, also in our favor. So does anyone have any questions on the revenues and expenses? Okay, and I'll say this before I go. Overall, when you compare the revenues and expenses, our revenues exceed our expenditures roughly around 14 million, but you have to keep in mind depreciation is not included. So if we were to include depreciation, it would be roughly around 6 million. So thank you.
Good morning. So this morning I will go over Q3 with you for the grants, which represents April through June. We drew down $3.6 million. Of that, $2 million was for the 5307 funds, which is the operating assistance for fleet purchase, bus preventative maintenance, and ADA. In addition to that, we were able to draw down $1 million for rail preventive maintenance, which is for rail preventive maintenance, like it says and car miles. No change in bus and bus facilities. And then for the enhanced mobility and seniors and disabled individuals, that's Collin County Rides. We were able to draw down $140,000. And in addition, we're able to add in $370,000 for fleet purchase, which would be for access vans in anticipation of the FY27 capital budget being approved today. And then the STBG funds, we were able to draw down $250,000 for the bus preventive maintenance, which pretty much, well, it's actually van pool, and then add in another $2.5 million of funding for van pool services for the coming year. And then no change in CMAC, no change in CRISI right now. As a reminder, the CRISI will be used for A-train enhancements when we're able to do that. And so, as I mentioned, $3.6 million of drawdowns. We have a bus grant that's in STIP for $2.2 million that will represent 3 buses, 3 of the 35-foot buses that will be coming up soon. And then we have 4 other grants that we can execute when we're ready, primarily for fleet purchase, bus maintenance, and our operating assistance. Any questions on grants for Q3?
And good morning. I'll look at the investment report that is in your package. You have the full investment report in there. Just hitting on some of the highlights of that report. The book value as of the end of June was $140.7 million. And the yield to maturity was 3.596%. During the quarter, we earned $1.29 million in income, which brings us to a fiscal year total of 3.8. The weighted average maturity was 170 days. Nearly 68% of our funds are available overnight, which we'll see in the next page. And then 100% of our investments are rated AAA or AA plus. And then there's a portfolio duration of 1.37 years. Overall composition of the investment report right now. Our Techstar investment pool holds 64% of our funds. 18% of the portfolio is agency callables, 8% U.S. Treasuries, 5.6% agency bullets, and then 3.6% of that is bank deposits. And as I mentioned, 67.8 of that is available overnight for operating expenditures, and that is what is in the Techstar investment pool plus the bank deposits. Any questions on the investment report? Before I move forward to the recommendation, last month we presented to you the fair policy and gave you a draft of the fair policy. We continue to work through that draft. I did receive some feedback on that, and we will look at that and feed that into what the next draft that we bring to you. But at this moment, I just wanted to open it up to see if there was any other feedback that you all wanted to provide in regard to the draft that you were given last month. Hearing none, the staff recommends the board approve the monthly financial statement, grant report, and investment report ending June 30th, 2026.
Make a motion to approve the report as presented.
Got a motion to approve. Anybody have a second?
Okay.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carried unanimously. Thank you so much. Moving on to number 2, conduct a public hearing and consider approval of a resolution to adopt the proposed Denton County Transportation Authority fiscal year 2027 operating and capital budget, long-range financial plan, and budget contingency plan beginning October 1st, 2026, and ending September 30th, 2027.
All right. Good morning again. Skip that since you just said it. Okay, so today where we stand is we are here to present with a public hearing the adopted budget for FY 27 with a board vote. And then from today through September 30th, we will be preparing the FY 27 budget for its execution for our first day of the fiscal year, which is October 1st. This slide is showing you the changes since July when we last met. There's very few. I'm going to start actually with the expense because it affects the revenue. So for purchase transportation for Coppell Lift, when we had presented in July, we were looking at the program as a whole, where we should have just been looking at the task order amount of 73,000. So we shored up that amount to be sure that the amount for Coppell Lift matched the task order at $73,000 of purchase transportation. And then there's a 60% markup on that, so it affects the revenue. So we adjusted that as well, so everything would line up. In addition to that, for the officer on a train, we were able to get firmer numbers from the county on what to expect with that. So instead of the budget of 300,000, it's 314,506 for a $14,000 change. And then capital, we got better pricing on the Gillig buses. We had estimated 900,000. We found out that there are 901,000, and then there's a $6,000 inspection. So we went ahead and added just a little bit more, rounded into $910,000 to have a little contingency in case anything was to change. And so instead of the $2.7 million, we're at a $30,000 increase at $2.73 million in capital. And those are the only changes we've had since July. Any questions before I move on from that? So here you'll see the budget summary. And again, the only changes are the same that I just mentioned. They affect contracted mobility service number looks a little bit different than July. The A-train number will, and then the capital number will. But it does give us a $61.3 million budget. Our proposed capital will be $20.3 million. That includes TAM, which is that transit asset management, which is the money we're setting aside for future capital projects. Debt service is unchanged from July at 1.9 million, and our G&A to OpEx remains the same as you saw at 18.5%. Here you're able to see the entire budget on one slide, which is kind of fun. And so you have the revenues at 81 million. Those are led by sales tax and the federal operating grants as the two primary drivers. Then you have operating expenses at the same 61.3 we just saw. Primary drivers there would be purchase transportation, salary, wages, and outsourced services and charges. Capital's at 16.5 here. It doesn't include the TAM. So this is truly just the amount that we plan to spend in FY27 for the capital projects. And that's on a sheet that's coming up here, a slide coming up here in a minute. The debt service you saw at 1.9 and how it breaks down between the two bond issuances. And then our summary showing you the overall revenue minus those expenses to its right leaves us with a balance of $1.2 million, which is anticipated for capital, but there's more information on a further slide that we'll talk about. You can see another option for how we would utilize that. So this is showing you the change in net position again with the $61.3 million over under the total operating expenses. Also you'll see in the bottom right corner there, 68.82% increase And that increase is primarily due to the purchase transportation. So the increase in Frisco Gozum for the whole year, Coppell, Lift, and Vanpool have been the major drivers for the increase over the year, for why that is at 68.2% increase. And then in addition to that, there's also some of an increase in outsourced services and charges. And that's for a variety of things such as additional advertising, additional community involvement, the bus seat refurbishments, the officer on the train, those kinds of things kind of added up into that category. So. And then here is a slide that kind of shows you the impact of purchase transportation. So it's showing you that that impact is a $4.5 million increase over the prior year. If we did not have that impact of purchase transportation, our budget would be up 4.68%. But with that increase in service, which ties into an increase in revenue, our budget's up 13.03% over the last year adoption. So good reasons to be updated, means we're growing. And then this is just showing you revenue as a whole, the 81 million, again, the key drivers being sales tax and federal grants. This is capital. The only change between what you see here and what you saw in July is that fleet purchase number went from the 2.7 even to 2.73 million. And it takes you, two slides, takes you to the bottom line where you can see in the very bottom there, the 20 millions with the transit asset management, and then the 16.6 million without. And then now we're moving on to TRIP. We're not asking for a decision on this today, but we just wanted to lay out the options that we'll be discussing in January. So to the far left, you will see the calculation as we've always done it for the last number of years. And basically what that is taking the unrestricted fund balance minus the reserves to come up with an amount. There's some things we've learned from looking at this calculation that it's not including. But if we were to just take it the way it was, it would leave us with the $3.7 million number. But then if you look over to option 2, the thing that wasn't taken into consideration is 2 things. One is the debt service payment that we'll have in FY27, which is that $1.9 million number. And then the other thing it hasn't taken into consideration is the amount that we're looking to find to help with some of the A-Train extension projects. So $50 million is a roundabout number that we're looking for, that we've plugged in to kind of explain option 2 and what's happening there, which of course would leave us without a balance. And then the third option is to show you what we just saw on the other slide, which was the whole budget on one slide, where we were showing you that there is $1.2 million that's still available after all the revenue minus the expenses that we have planned to use as savings for capital, but it's up to the board discretion if some of that would want to be able to be utilized for TRIP as well. So we wanted to show that as an option as well. Any questions related to that?
One question. Do you know off the top of your head, even a round number of how much the TRIP program has expended over its lifetime? How much money was set aside for the cities?
How much was set aside or how much was spent?
Set aside, because set aside, once we set it aside, this board has viewed it.
I've got the answer. We're gonna talk about it in the TRIP discussion here for the approval. 48.8 million has been authorized between 2021 and 2026.
Derek?
The other thing I'll say about that slide, if you just go back one. We've been talking about the intermediate service plan and the potential to do more modal optimization in Denton and the member cities south of there, Louisville and Highland Village, by substituting fixed route in Denton, moving microtransit further south, expanding some zones. That will also take operating dollars to accomplish when we bring you that alternative, somewhere in the $1.5 to $2 million range. And so have that number in mind also as you look at that. There's 1.2 million of money that is not allocated in the current budget, but we are going to ask for this service change that you all get to consider.
ISP 3 is not in that budget.
Correct. ISP 3 is not in it, and it could, and if approved, it will count against that amount. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning again. I'm going to look at the long-range financial plan. As we were going into this budget season, we were kind of tasked with moving the long-range financial plan to what was currently a 12-year plan to a 20-year plan. And that's what we initially set down to do. What you have on your spot is really all the numbers and the data that go behind what I'm going to present to you today. So I won't go into with going over the actual long range plan and all the numbers that are built in there, kind of at a high level deal here. So when we first started into the process, we were stretching this out 20 years. We were stretching it out 20 years. We basically took all of our assumptions, our growth assumptions, we applied it. And now with each one of the departments, with operations, with planning, we updated all the capital plan. And then we put it all together. This picture is kind of telling of what we came into. So basically what the plan showed was that we would have a positive net available fund balance through fiscal year 33, and then starting in fiscal year 34, our expenditures would be outweigh our revenues. So then we went in with the plan of what levers are we going to pull in order to try to solidify the plan out over a 20-year period. And so what we brought to you last month, as just as a recap, we looked at a couple of different levers. It was one with the sales tax growth assumption and one with looking at expenditures. On the sales tax growth assumptions, we threw out to you two different options. Option, what is currently built into the plan when we started was that the sales tax growth would be 2% growth year over year between now and fiscal year 33, and then it would be 2.5% growth every year after that. The options that we brought to you in July, what we referred to as option 2, increase those assumptions by 0.5%. Option 3, increase those assumptions by 0.75%. And the increase in 0.5% would only get us out to fiscal year 42 before our revenues, or excuse me, our expenditures exceeded our revenues. And option 3 got us out to that 20-year window that we were looking at to balance. The feedback we received from the board was we want to make sure that we continue to be conservative on that growth rate and not get too far out there. And so we took in that consideration, and we'll show how that compares with the plan that we have now. Another thing that we looked at was the capital plan. Again, we had sat down with everybody. We showed you this graph right here just as a recap of what the capital plan looked like. Last month, very heavy on the front end, not a whole lot on the back end. And you guys kind of gave us feedback to go back and look at that, see if we could try to level that out. Also look at fleet purchases in later years into the plan and make sure that, we solidify the plan from there. So we sat down as a team and initially looked at the capital plan, made some adjustments to the capital plan. There's some movements, there's some additions, there's some subtractions, and we'll talk about that in a couple of later slides. We then looked at, after making those changes in the capital plan, we then looked at those same levers as far as the sales tax growth and expenditures, and what did we need to do then in order to make the plan balanced out for 20 years. And so the plan that you currently have before you, these escalation assumptions are what we have in there at this point. So currently, again, the sales tax revenue was a 2% growth and a 2.5% growth. What's in that plan before you is a 2.44% growth and a 2.94% growth. So less of a growth assumption than what we showed you last month. So again, trying to remain conservative. On the expenditure side, the purchase transportation, we decreased it from 4% growth year over year to 3.5% growth year over year. And that's basically built on the idea that most of our agreements have a 3% escalator in them year over year. And so 4% seemed to be a lot of a stretch. And so we kind of met it in the middle at 3.5. And then all the other expenditure pieces that are on there, we went from a 2% growth year over year down less than 0.25% to 1.77% growth year over year. So if we look at just the sales tax outlook, the growth, again, this is similar to the graph that we showed you last month. And really the purpose of this graph was to show you a comparison of what we were projecting, what we were suggesting versus what the comptroller was saying the growth rate would be in fiscal year 27 for the state as a whole. So the comptroller says in fiscal year 27, the estimated sales tax growth is 3.7%. Option 3 that we showed you in July showed a weighted average of 3.08%. And then the updated version that is currently in the plan is at 2.78%. And so again, well below what the comptroller is showing for fiscal year 27. We also went back and looked at the last 15 to 20 years for DCTA and for our member cities, just to say, how does this compare to what we've actually seen over the last in history, and still feel very comfortable with that number being a very conservative number in comparison to those. So the changes again that we made in the plan from July to now, one, we made changes in the capital projects, which we'll look at on the next slide. We made changes in the operating expenditures where we actually decreased about $8.5 million worth of expenditures, getting us a 20-year picture where we have a balanced budget at the end. On the capital plan, again, some of the changes that we made, we rescheduled some projects. There was no change in the cost. We just kind of pushed them a little bit down the line in order to allow us to build up our reserves in order to pay for those projects, more so in cash. And so the things that we moved, the things that we pushed to later years was the rail fleet purchase, the positive train control project, the bus admin facility, and then the fuel infrastructure at bus ops and maintenance. We also added or extended some items in the plan as well, which actually added about $65 million. Those items were the rail major maintenance that we extended in there. We added a rail ops facility. As we were talking through the projects, we realized that something we did not add in there that would be necessary when we updated our fleet purchase, our rail fleet, we would need to expand our rail ops facility. So we put that in there. Buses, cutaways, and support vehicles. Again, those fleet purchases, we extended those into the plan as well. Technology improvements, and then we also added a train wash rehab project in FY27. The things that are unchanged in the plan from July were the Carrollton A-Train extension and the O-Town TOD. No change in the scope, no change in cost in either one of those projects. And then the one thing that we did remove out of the plan, out of the long-range financial plan, was the A-Train 15-minute frequency program. That was in the plan for a $190 million project. It was funded with $152 million in grant funding. Both the expenditure and the revenue both come out, so it's really a net change of about a negative $38 million to the plan. So how did that reshape the capital plan that we were looking at? At the top, you see what we presented to you in July. Again, very heavy on the front end, very light on the back end. The updated plan shows, you can clearly see where we pushed those projects a little bit between fiscal year 36 and fiscal year 40. And we added, you could see a little bit of a change in those later years where the bars are a little bit higher due to those fleet purchases. This is something that we continue to work on. We continue to to level it out, continue to solidify this plan. And I mean, it's an ever working plan. And so we're still working on this to try to level it all out and for you guys. But this is where it sits currently. So overall, we took your feedback from July. We looked at the levers of increasing our sales tax growth assumption year over year, decreasing our expenditures year over year, making updates to the capital plan with the whole idea of trying to make the 20-year plan be a balanced plan out the full time. And so what you have before you is that plan. And what it shows is that it is a balanced plan out to fiscal year 46, and which is big in comparison to where we started, where we were going negative in fiscal year 33 to 35, 36. And so we've got a plan where it shows that we have the 20-year window. The great thing about this is that it's a plan, it's there to help us to make decisions. So any of the projects, any of the purchases, the fleet purchases, anything that comes up, one of the first things I do is go to the long-range financial plan and say, how does this impact our plan? How does this impact our financial picture out, over 20 years? And so the plan would be then to come back to you guys next year and to keep it a 20-year plan every year going forward and see what that looks like. So with that, I will take any feedback that you might have in regard to the plan. Now that you had a chance to review it last month, and hopefully we're able to review it this month as well.
So I have a thought, and I think I mentioned something about it last month as well, because I know we've got some really big expenditures coming up in the next 4 or 5 years, right? So right now we've got about up through the next 4 years, we have about $160 million just between the DOD and the extension down to Carrollton. I understand what we're trying to do with looking at, the growth of sales tax. We have a lot more control over the expenses, so that's kind of where I'm looking at. We have two things. When we start talking about on slide 38, where we're talking about the items at the top, where it's talking about no change in cost. That so we're just moving some of these projects out between 4 and 10 years. We know that when we start pushing, when we do these projects later, they get more expensive over time. So that's my biggest concern about that, is just saying, okay, we're just going to move these costs and assume they stay the same, because we know that doesn't happen.
Right.
But two, the other part of that is looking at, we are looking at cash funding $160 million worth of, for 2 projects in the next 4 years. I'd really like to know if we were able to, what's our ability to finance that? And what does it look like if we finance those instead of just cash pay it?
Mhm.
And does that allow us to maybe shuffle some of these things back in earlier so that they are actually cheaper now rather than later? And then also just pulling out the 15-minute frequency. I know we talked about it last time as well. I wasn't under the impression that we were ready to go to take that one off the table. Maybe it's just me, but I would like more discussion on whether or not we feel like the 15-minute frequency project needs to just go away, especially since it's only 38 million when we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's a big number, but it's, it looks like quite a bit of it is grant funded.
Yes, ma'am. So I'll address this all good points. Number one, for a lot of good reasons, we're going to propose an alternative recommendation that we not ask you to approve the long-range financial plan today. We'll just go forward with the budget approval if y'all are agreeable, and we can have more time to talk about this. Next month, we will give a briefing on the A-Train extension project in downtown Carrollton, and Derek is already working on alternatives. So what does it look like to cash pay? What does it look like to finance? All that sort of stuff, as well as what does it look like to finance for other capital expenditures that we see over the next several years. So we want to provide you all with those options, and that is coming. I am having very extensive conversations with Rio Grande Pacific about what does it take to run a railroad. What is the capital cost required to run a railroad? Railroads are expensive. And when we replace things, we want to figure out how we replace things just in time. Safety is number one, but how do we make sure we're spending the right dollar at the right time? And it's a balance of risk, it's a balance of cash flow and all those sorts of things. So the capital budget process for the railroad is going to start in October for fiscal year 2028, so that when we bring this long range financial plan back to you, we can have more clarity about why rail fleet purchase in that time period is the right answer, or if it needs to move back forward. And so that conversation is going, and that's to Derek's point about this is going to be a 20-year plan that we revisit year after year after year. What this long range financial plan shows is that it is possible to run a local service transit agency with a regional service of an A train on a half cent. That's a really important thing. But I think this board is beginning to recognize more, the region is beginning to recognize more that commuter rail really is a regional asset. And when you talk about things like 15-minute frequency to tie into a light rail system that's serving the rest of the region, then that's where we look at a long-range financial plan and says, well, what's the balance between a local transit service and a regional transit service, and how do we figure that all out? So I'm not proposing that the 15-minute frequency project go away. We're just trying to show what does it take to get to a 20-year financial plan for DCTA. And then this is what's regional, what's local is a kind of conversation that's happening at the regional level overall. So it's not going away. We're continuing the design work. You all will have better numbers on what that's going to cost by the end of this year. But if you want to see what does it take to get to a 20-year long-range financial plan, this is stretching all four corners to get it all covered with the half cent that we have. So all that to say, concerns are noted, understood, and we've got paths forward to direct all of it. But there is a question about what's regional, what's local, and how does all of that get sorted out?
I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
And I do want to clarify, there is $24 million worth of financing built into this plan. So the original presentation that was shown on the A train expansion, the best case scenario at the time showed us needing about $24 million in financing, or local funds that we had talked about financing. So that's what's built into the plan currently. Now, like Paul mentioned, I'm working on several different options for you guys to take a look at, whether it be the A train extension or whether it be multiple projects that we have. My thought process is to be able to come back to you guys, show you what those options are, say, okay, here's what this does to the long range financial plan. This is the impact that each one of these options play on that plan.
So Derek, when you said you have 24 million, that's in the plan already cooked in. And you were still, does that mean, and even with that, we're still about $50 million short?
That would be about half of the 50 million.
Okay, okay.
The point to that is we're looking at having to borrow at least $25 million. And so to talk about net available fund balance when you're looking at having to borrow up to 25 or $50 million, I think you got to consider those things together.
Okay, and the next question I have is, I like how you put your operating expenses. So does that assume that when you put the expansion of service down to downtown Carrollton, you built in here additional salaries for people to operate that train? Okay.
There are additional operating expenditures built in here for that. Yeah.
Okay.
It's additional train hours and car miles under the unit price contract. That cost is in there. We don't anticipate other staff members at DCTA because of that extension, but we would have to put more service hours and train miles into the annual task order to Rio Grande Pacific, and that is built into that plan.
Okay, great.
think it's about $600,000 a year in today's dollars for that extra service.
Well, the other thing is, the only other thing is I will echo what, the board member Green said. I'd prefer to make our tweaks on the expense side because we have full control of that. Sales tax is gonna be what sales tax is gonna be. So that's my only other thought on that.
I do have one question. You talked about providing various scenarios, which I appreciate. It's helpful for me to know, if we do this, what does that do? If we do that, what does that do? Do you, on the current technology you have access to, does that give you the ability to somewhat easily do that now, or is that going to improve? I know we're working on some new technology to sort of have a one-stop shop for data. Is us purchasing that going to help what you're doing, or you've already got what you need to somewhat easily tweak these scenarios?
I will answer that.
Yeah.
Yes, it will.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
And on the sales tax question, I can go either way. I feel pretty comfortable with what I'm seeing on the 2.75, but I'm certainly not going to argue against more conservative either. And I agree that we do have more control over our expenses. Thank you.
So let me offer something to think about as we talk about control over expenses. $50 million operating budget, not thinking about Frisco, the Collin County rides, all that sort of stuff. $50 million operating budget, round numbers. Our operating expense on the rail contract is about 12 million. Our budget for VIA is about 12 million. 50% of our budget is based on service contracts. And we don't know what's going to happen to those service contracts when they have to be recompeted, whether it's on the rail side or the microtransit side. So I would contend that maybe we currently don't have as much control over expenses as we might think because of the way we're postured on how we deliver these services. So one of the things that you'll see in the goals and objectives for next year in the work plan is improve long-range financial plan outcomes. What is inside of that is, how are we going to continue to provide these services and grow these services for our member cities in the long term? And what is the right path to be taking to do that? So I'm not asking for any action or response, happy to talk more about it, but I just want to make that really clear. Like when we showed you that peer agency review thing in the June budget workshop, one of the things that becomes clear is DCTA is got more service in contracts than maybe some of our peers do.
Feedback?
I'd like to add something to what on the other end of it. All the hype right now is AI, and how are they gonna spend all this money as they build it in local government? Especially for Texas is saying local government is gonna have a say in whether it goes to the school, whether the fire department, whatever. I don't ask for anybody having crystal ball, but I think we need to think of that.
Yes, sir.
Because right now, the government, certainly the government is holding meetings about what should happen. And I hear the plans for AI are bringing to smaller communities rather than larger. Utility companies, so on and so forth.
Yep. Yeah, it's hard to have a conversation about public transportation without somebody mentioning AI and autonomy. So you're right. So I'll just, nothing has changed with here. We just make it a practice to show what our org structure looks like with each budget adoption. And so we went through this last time. So that's what you see here. And if you flip the slide, we'll talk about really briefly. You go to the next one. The work plan for next year, our major projects, extension, TOD, enhanced member city value through service and ridership alternatives. We're really wrestling as a staff right now about what does a long range strategic plan look like, or what should we be doing to think about the future? And there's so many things happening in the region. I think we got to find the right balance. when I think about what number 3 is, it's about, are we delivering as much service as we can, as much cost-effective service as we can in our member cities to drive as much ridership as we are able? And this is now, once we address intermediate service plan phase 3, we need to begin looking at Saturdays and Sundays and where are the places where we're not offering service that our customers might want. Number 4, long-range financial plan outcomes, we talked about a little bit. Number 5, data infrastructure to board member Rumor's point. We have to focus on our customers. Number 6, Randy will talk about net promoter score, that we've established a baseline. Number 6 is going to be how we make sure we keep ourselves accountable to improving it. And then on the next slide, we are in a really strong position in the regional conversation to be able to talk about what transit in North Texas looks like. And then as our vision continues to become clear about transit-oriented development, the customer experience, and then what is happening across the region and how can DCTA help meet those needs. So this is where we'll be focused, where our exec team is finalizing goals and objectives. We'll be bringing that to our leadership team here in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be ready to go on October 1 with approval of this budget. So thank you.
Again, today's public hearing, asking you guys to adopt with a board vote. We'll begin to prepare the budget between now and September 30th and implement it the first day of October for fiscal year 27. Staff recommends approval of a resolution adopting the proposed Denton County Transportation Authority fiscal year 2027 operating and capital budget beginning October 1st, 2026 and ending September 30th, 2027. And budget contingency plan, excluding the long-range financial plan, which will be brought back at a future meeting.
Thank you, Derek. And Mr. Chairman, as you remember, we have to do the public hearing. And so now if you'd like to open that, we can, and before you take action on this.
So we'll open public meeting at 10:53. The public meeting is open. Is there any public comment? All right, so there being no public comment, we'll close the public hearing at 10:53 and a half.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve a resolution adopting the proposed Denton County Transportation Authority fiscal year 2027 operating and capital budget beginning October 1, 2026, and September 30, 2027, and budget contingency plan, but excluding the long-range financial plan, which will be brought back at a future meeting. All right, got a motion
I'll second.
and a second. Any further discussion at all? Being none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody, for that hard work getting that together. Moving on to item number 3, discuss and consider approval of fiscal year 2026 Transportation Reinvestment Program project submission. Karina?
Good morning. I'm Karina Maldonado. I'm here to discuss the fiscal year 26 project submittals after opening the fiscal year 26 call for projects. So staff will be recommending approval of the fiscal year 26 Transportation Reinvestment Program project submission, not submissions. And we'll go through the details of that pretty quickly. So just for a reminder for board members and for the public, what is the TRIP program? This is the Transportation Reinvestment Program adopted by board policy that provides financial assistance to our DCTA member cities for transit supportive projects, those that are consistent with DCTA's current long-range service plan. This program does align with our mission of improving mobility, quality, economic development, and of course, meeting our objectives of trying to get folks to where they want to go, live and play. So just a brief highlight, you saw this during the budget presentation. This is just a recap of what the board approved for the TRIP program as in terms of available funding in fiscal year 26. So after going through the budget process where we look at after capital and operating has been pulled out, taking 15% of that net available fund, what was made available to member cities for fiscal year 26 was $3.7 million. So our process is fairly consistent per the trip policy. We open the call in January of every year using the allocation that's made available and then looking through available funds. So this year was a little bit different because we're adopting the updated trip policy that was adopted by the board in January 2025. We did offer a pre-middle meeting with our member cities just to have the opportunity to discuss potential projects, how they align with the policy, and just ensure that there's kind of board visibility in advance. The call ended in April, staff reviewed, and now we're here to present the one submission received by the city of Denton. Both the cities of Louisville and Highland Village did elect to roll over funds for future projects that we're already in discussion with those member cities. So there was a question earlier in the budget presentation about how much funding was made available through the TRIP program. Since the 2021 authorization, 48.8 million up to fiscal year 26 has been made available. Of that total, 37.4 million has been obligated into projects. That does include if an award, what that total would be. And then of that total, 13.7 million has been expended through the reimbursement process. So this table shows a breakdown. I won't go through each one by member city, how much was allocated and obligated into a project, reflecting a 28% expenditure of total authorized funds. Now, specific to fiscal year 26, what was made available, we talked about the 3.7 million from the allocations. The call for projects does go beyond that to show allocation plus any rollover funds or any returned funds that could be from projects that have been completed with a minor balance or funds that may have been returned. So this call reflects what those numbers were at the start in January. It doesn't reflect any carryover or returned funds that have happened since. That'll be reflected in fiscal year 27. So the breakdown showing the fiscal year 26 call for projects made available 13.2 million for all member cities. That breakdown shows 1.8 million for City of Denton, 1.9 total for City of Highland Village, and then 9.4 million available for City of Louisville. Now, as we opened the call and had our communication with our member cities, we did only receive one project for fiscal year 26. That was from the City of Denton, totaling the total remaining amount for their funding availability. So they had 1.8 million available. They've requested the full balance for the project. And of course, the remaining available funds reduced down to 11.4 million. So for that project, the request from the City of Denton is to request additional funding for a previous fiscal year 24 award, which is the D20 project for Woodrow Lane. In fiscal year 24, the request was for 850,000 for planning, design, and construction. After going through the planning phase, they identified a need for additional funds to make the project go through full construction. So this request is limited to final construction plans, again, for a multimodal project to increase connectivity between Route 3 and the A-Train Rail Trail. So increasing overall access to transit through our Connect service and our A-Train Rail Trail network, which then connects into the regional VeloWeb. So the request today is for that full available balance of 1,844,274. If awarded, that would create a total trip request for this project of 2.69 million. And with that, staff is recommending approval of the fiscal year 26 transportation reinvestment project submission. And I'd be happy to take any questions.
I have a comment, and I think Board Member Gilmore has made this point in the past, and I just want to reiterate that, because just looking at this, Louisville's got $9.5 million. We are that have been, allocated to us that we have not used, or that we have not specified what project we're going to be using it for. So we are. I just want to state that we are planning to use that mostly on the TOD project. And also, I know the picture also doesn't look so great when you look at how much has been authorized for expenditure on projects that hasn't been spent yet. And I would just say some of those projects just take time. So we are working on those. And this program remains a huge benefit to the city of Louisville. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone understood that.
And if I could piggyback on that, of course, with Highland Village, the amount we get every year is not that much. But building a path in Denton, Louisville, or Highland Village costs the same. So we have been banking ours. We've been working on for the past year and a half on a program to really lay out a path along FM 407 and some other areas that makes a good connection to the train station. And we are hoping that we can use the TRIP funds for a matching grant, which we did just find out the call for the grant will be at the end of this year. So we're excited about that. So hopefully that will go a long way to help us do that.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate as staff, the communication on all these various projects. We are in the service of our member cities in all things. The TRIP program is no exception. So we will certainly be alongside you when the time comes for the grant application and for the application of the Louisville Fund. So thank you for that.
On the Denton side, that this Woodrow project will be very useful for folks being able to access Route 3 and the rail trail, which then connects them to a train station if that's where they're heading. It is a high-speed road. I've biked on the road before. It is not fun. The sidewalk is narrow, and I know we have lots of people walking and biking along this corridor, so this will be a really big improvement once this comes online. And there's actually a Pecan Creek Trail. If you go back to the map, Karina, there's sort of a east-west creek kind of in the middle of Woodrow and the dotted line. That's a future trail planned as well. So there will be lots of connectivity to be able to get to the bus lines and the rail trail.
So this project, just so I can make sure I understand the map, this project is the dotted line that goes north to
Yes.
south? Okay.
Yes. And we have coordinated with staff through their planning process for the D20 portion to make sure that the additional funds are supporting that connection for the Pecan Creek Trail. So we do get involved with staff to make sure that we're still aligned throughout the process.
I'd like to also make a comment, because we haven't finished the long range plan, which means we haven't decided if we're gonna not fund TRIP in 27 for the next fiscal year. But I will point out that we've already given $48 million to our 3 member cities. And I'll point out that we're $25 million short on one of our main projects. Not saying to take any money back. And I'm not being a Monday morning quarterback and saying we should have thought about this, because when we set this project up in 21, we didn't have these projects in our mind. But I'm just pointing that out to my fellow board members from member cities that we are short money. And kind of keep that in mind when we discuss this next time.
I'm taking. All right, with that, anything further?
Nope. Ready to accept any other questions you have, and otherwise we do recommend approval.
I'd like to motion to approve.
Okay.
Motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion from anybody? All right, there being none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you.
All right, item number 4, discuss and consider authorizing the chief executive officer to apply for the fiscal year 2026 bus and bus facilities grant competitive program with local matching funds in the amount of $813,000 to purchase 3 35-foot diesel transit buses at a total estimated cost of $2,913,000. Austin?
Good morning, members of the board. Austin Fifth, Vice President of Planning and Development. I will be joined here with Don Jones, who's our Revenue and Business Analytics Manager, here in a couple slides. For this grant, just wanted to outline where we're at with vehicle needs in our current plan. And then, as you'll see on the bottom 3 boxes, those are the 3 proposed routes that we're looking to expand within the ISP plan. So what this says today is, essentially, we've got 29 peak vehicles across all services. 27 are 35-foot buses. 2 are the cutaways, and those aren't part of this additional bus request. So today we've got 3, 6, and 7 at 2 buses each. The UNT campus routes, which start here on the chart at Eagle Point through the Bernard Street, and those count up to 12. And then the Colorado Express is 2. So 20 of the 27 buses are in revenue service as we speak today. ISP 2 and 4 will add 6 buses. And then currently, as I mentioned, Colorado Express runs 2. It'll add another additional bus to that count. So the net add is 7 if we were to implement ISP phase 3. With that, to the chart on the right, as you can see, with that 27 peak vehicles need and adding a spare allowance of an FTA requirement of 20%, we need 33 to operate our current operation as well as that ISP phase 3. Little bit of an eye chart here. I will try and walk you all through this as best as I can. Essentially, this is the 10-year outlook of our bus fleet plan. The bottom 2 rows, as you'll see, is what we need for service, as mentioned previously, and then the usable fleet of those 35-foot buses year over year. So the 7 2006 Gilligs that you'll see up top are retiring. They are beyond useful, or actually extended beyond useful life. So we need to start retiring those here in the next few years. And you'll see that in the dark blue areas. 2 more of the 2006 units will be repowered, and those will carry further into our fleet plan. So the FY28 buy that includes this grant is 5 buses. So this grant would be applying for 3 of those 5. So if the grant's not awarded, 3 buses would have to come out of that plan. We're holding on to these Eldorados. The Eldorados are in the red. Those are buses that are no longer manufactured. That company is out of business. So obsolescence with parts is a problem right now with those buses. So the quicker we can get rid of those out of our fleet, the better. So that's why they're in red. And we're going to plan to retire 3 of those in FY27. The remaining 3 we're trying to get rid of as soon as we can. But based on this fleet plan, again, we're going to need 33 to operate with that ISP. So with that, if there's any questions on this fleet plan, I'll take those and then I'll hand it over to John.
I have one question. This may not be for you, might be for Derek. Shouldn't we have a 20-year plan that mirrors
Yes.
his plan?
Yes. So we've extended it 10-year. We do have a 20-year outlook of this fleet plan. We are still massaging that right now with Derek. So we just wanted to show what we've inked in right now. Perfect.
Thank you.
And with that, I will invite Dawn Jones to come up here and talk about the financial outlook of this.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to go over the details of surrounding the grant right now. So the grant that we would be applying for is the fiscal year 26 Buses and Bus Facilities Competitive Program. It's the same grant program that we applied for last year and were awarded. This round of this grant, the FTA has authorized $21 million total with a maximum award per applicant of $2.1 million. Our funding request, if board approves, would be for 3 Gillig 35-foot buses. The cost per bus, based on recent quotes received, would be $901,000. We have added in a contingency with a 7% price escalator plus $6,000 per bus for inspection costs. That makes the total cost per bus $971,000 for a total project cost of $2,913,000. With that grant cap of $2.1 million, that would make our local cost $813,000, which is 27.9% local share, well above the 15% required for the grant. You'll notice that from the last time that we presented and went for this grant in fiscal year 25, the price per bus has increased quite a bit. The reason for that is the Washington State contract 06719, which we used to purchase the buses in fiscal year 25, has since expired, being replaced by contract number 04824. With that, the price of a base price of a 35-foot Gillig bus went from $565,000 up to 713,000 per bus. That's a 26.2% increase just in the base price of the bus. The price we presented to the board back in March of 2025 with contingencies was 773,000. For this round, we're asking for 971,000 per bus. Are there any questions on any of the numbers or the grant itself?
If I could ask, and I think I know the answer to this question, but the base price between those two, is there any real changes in the buses? Is that
It's
just?
the same
inflation?
specs. The
Yeah.
specs match, yes.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I would just note that this proves, this is exactly what I was referring to when we were talking about the costs increasing over time. So this local share of 813, is that built into our budget, or is this something that would be in a future year?
In this case, we're asking for advance authority on money that shows up in the long range financial plan for fiscal year 2028. They're wrong, but we have budget in long range financial plan for fiscal 28 to buy buses at full price. Advance authority to apply for this grant allows us to get those 2028 buses at 75 cents on the dollar or whatever the local share is. And if we don't get selected for the grant, then we don't spend any money and we just keep with the plan in 2028.
Okay, but I was just, so this money is built in there already.
It's in the long range financial plan. It is not in the fiscal 27 budget that you all just.
Okay, so if we were to, let's say we apply for the grant, we get the grant.
Right.
When does I don't know how long all of it takes to come to fruition and when we have to pay that.
Dawn
local
is an
share.
expert at how long. She can share that with you.
If we applied for and were awarded the grant, it obviously takes time for them to make that award. From there, we have to get those funds added to the statewide transportation improvement plan program, which takes another bulk of time. We're anticipating that the purchase of these buses would not be able to be initiated until the beginning of fiscal year 28. So that would mean that if we were awarded the grant, we would then put this into our fiscal year 28 budget.
Okay, so it doesn't affect 27.
Correct.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any reason why at all the cost of, if all things being equal, nothing changes on the vehicle itself, why the increase is like 8 or 9 times the rate of inflation?
Wish I knew, to be honest. I think it's just the industry and they'll point to tariffs, they'll point to a lot of different things.
I will also say this is a conversation well, go ahead first, sir. You first.
I was gonna say, I've been giving presentations on what's going on with data centers and the cost of chips is going through the roof.
Yeah.
So any chip in any computer, I'm sure have a lot of computers in them. And I just repriced a purchase of hardware and my cost went up 20% on Dell laptops.
Yeah.
So if it's got a chip in it, which everything does today, that's the kind of cost growth they're seeing. Way above inflation.
That, and there are only 2 American bus manufacturers still in business. And if you want to use federal money to buy buses, it's one of those 2 manufacturers. I don't know how that impacts the bottom price. I'm just telling you that is a fact. That is a fact. And we're all students of economics at some point in our careers. This is a topic of conversation amongst American Public Transit Association and the industry as a whole. I think for us here in DFW, we're going to be talking about alternative fuels plans and compressed natural gas. And Austin's already working on some things to talk about the price of fueling and all that sort of stuff. And how might DFW as a region be able to leverage the partnership amongst all of our agencies to get better unit prices on compressed natural gas buses, if that's where our region is in the future, all under the heading of improving long range financial plan outcomes and that work plan thing that we got coming up for next year. So suffice to say, we see this as a blinking warning light on the dashboard that we need to be paying attention to. Another part of this is life cycle cost of these heavy duty buses versus a medium duty bus that may cost half the price, but has a third of the useful life. There's what these buses have for useful life, but then there's what we can actually extend them to. We need to show you that math also to make sure that buying these heavy duty buses is still the right answer.
Do you remember how much was our grant last time?
The grant last time was $2.7 million total.
Okay.
Yeah, with a 405, it was 2.295 federal, 405,000 local match.
And are we, I think I know the answer, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. We're working with our other transit agencies to maybe, like you said, maybe pull and do a purchase instead of purchasing three, we purchase a bunch more and then maybe get a better price on it.
Well, that is what the Washington State procurement contract is.
Okay.
It's a contract that many agencies across the country are using, presumably because this is the best pricing that's available instead of just showing up at the factory and speccing your own
Okay.
bus.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, going to move on to the details of the grant application. So there are 6 evaluation criteria that they use to score the applications. They're demonstration of need, demonstration of benefits, planning and local regional prioritization, local financial commitment, project implementation strategy, and then technical, legal, and financial capacity. We will address all of these obviously in our grant application. And then there are additional considerations that are important to the administration that they will take into effect as they look through our grant. And then the administrative priorities, which are opportunity zones, cost-effective vehicle procurements, strengthening U.S. vehicle manufacturing industry, and benefits for communities and families. All of which, again, we fully intend to address in the application that we've already begun writing. And then finally is the timeline for the grant. Applications are due by September 21st. We plan to submit by September 18th at the latest to avoid any issues. They will start their evaluations after that deadline through approximately December. And then in December, they'll make their selection announcements. That could possibly shift to January just based on the holidays and them not having them ready by then. Pre-award authority is not eligible on this unless we obtained it from FDA in writing, although we don't anticipate needing pre-award authority since we have the planned out to purchase in fiscal year 28. And then obligation timeline, we spoke about this a little bit already. We would have to wait for the project to be included in the STIP, which we would request to have done immediately upon award. And then within 30 days of that being included in the STIP, we anticipate having the funds obligated into an FTA grant. Any other questions?
Anyway,
Okay, so with that, staff recommends authorizing the chief executive officer to apply for the fiscal year 2026 Bus and Bus Facilities Grant Competitive Program with local matching funds in the amount of $813,000 to purchase 3 35-foot diesel transit buses at a total estimated cost of $2,913,000.
I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve as stated.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion from anybody? Questions? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Motion carries. Item number 5.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I want to recognize Dawn. You all have not met her yet. This is your first presentation ever to the board, right? Okay. I wasn't sure. It feels like you've been up here a million, but
Many times, it's just not up here.
so we talk about employee development and the type of place that we want to be. Dawn joined us in September of 23, been here 3 years, came from the school district and administration, started in operations, came over to finance, became a master of federal and grants and all things on the fly. Then raised her hand and was promoted to the opportunity to be the revenue and business analytics manager, which is really the clearinghouse for all of our contracted services and the synchronization between ops and finance and planning about how we deliver those services. So couldn't be more proud of her. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you. All right, item number 5, discuss update on Denton County Transportation Authority Marketing and Communications Plan. Randy?
Good morning. Good morning. I gotta remind myself to stop getting on the agenda during budget talks. Although I am happy to say today, we are not asking for money. This is simply discussion item only, but that's kind. No board action required at this time. So what have we been up to in the marketing department? For fiscal 26, we focused on a consistent message across all channels. That's the best way for your customer to be concise when they get to the platform, when they get on the bus, to know exactly what to expect. We wanted to humanize the DCTA. We've done that through the use of video with our employees, our customers that you see on our Facebook platforms and all our social platforms. And then focus on DCTA and the value we bring. So that's not only talking to the customers, but also the stakeholders. There's tons of things that we bring outside of simply the services we provide. And then advertise on multiple fronts. So it's events, it's outreach, it's advertising, it's sponsorships, it's where our customers are. So that's where we aim to go. If there's a big community event in our member cities, then we want to be there. And then we are also going to be growing on that in fiscal 27. Social media sentiment has been increasing. If you see the KPIs that we track, audience impressions and engagements all up year over year. We credit the videos, like I mentioned, to that. It's hard to, be a keyboard warrior when you're looking at a cool story about one of our Go Zone drivers or one of our riders or one of the operators. So we think the videos are playing a huge role in that. And then also one thing that's we love to see is we actually have, if someone does have a negative comment, we also have a community in social media where they come to our defense. So we have been seeing that lately. And they're not DCTA employees. So that's always positive. As I mentioned, increased video content, the focus, the value of DCTA, the employees, the customers, and we focus on why and how. We're not just doing videos just to do them. We want them to have a purpose. And at the end of it is education and awareness. We do have an external marketing firm, DHD Films. This is a breakdown of how we spend their retainer. 49% is on social media. That encompasses the content creation, the scheduling, the metrics. It's high there. Social media, that is probably the primary source for where most of our customers are viewing our content. So we do put a lot of attention on that. You not only see our videos there, but anytime we have route initiatives separate from just video, we put them on our social media channels. Creative elements, that's our large scale ad designs. We do handle the smaller projects in-house. However, if you need bigger, better equipment that we don't have for ad campaigns, then that's where DHD comes into play, as well as the video production. I am proud of that 15.4%. We do a lot of video, and to only allocate 15% of the budget to that means we're maximizing as best we can. So what we do is when we have a photo shoot scheduled for one day, we try and shoot as many videos as possible on that one particular day. So it might be one day of production, but you're going to see about 5 to 6, 7 videos out of that one day. And then client services, that's the creative briefings, the weekly meetings. We do meet weekly with them just to go over projects and things of that nature. We try our best to keep that number as low as possible so the funds are spent in the areas that matter most to our customers. DCTA.net. This is a project that not only the marketing team has been working on, but DCTA as a whole. The staff has been great answering all the questions we send them, all the content that they've had to review. So currently, we're in the content crosswalk completed in June. The next step for us is the beta site presentation in September. That's where we go in and look at all the changes that we made, and trying out and make sure it works like we planned it to work. The highlights of it is it will look on brand, and it will be much more user friendly. So if one of the big things is if you're a train rider, bus rider, Go Zone, on the new site, the navigation to those specific areas will be much simpler. So the end goal was to get DCTA.net on brand and make it more user friendly. The new look, we just spent time talking about all the new buses that have ordered or about to order. This is the new skins on them, the new wraps. As you can see, those are the new Gilligs all lined up, looking really nice. And then we also rebranded the Go Zone vehicles as well. There are about 5 Go Zone vehicles within the member cities with the new look. And VIA has committed to, the schedule is about 4 to 5 vehicles per month that will have the new wrap and should be completed in the entire fleet within a 2-year period. A-Train corridor study. This was an outreach that we were constantly in the middle of doing. We have a list of over 15,000 company contacts spread across 1,500 businesses. And it's all along the A-Train corridor. It's 1 mile east to west. And the goal is economic development, A-Train ridership growth, promote the employee pass program, and secure on-site tabling events. So what does this mean? This means we are going to get in front of the people that we think should be using the train. If they're not, we want to know why. And then we're going to go to their locations, table in their lobbies, and promote our services that way. This illustrates the corridor from Denton. It goes all the way to 635. We do extend it. And then also we have identified some businesses that go beyond the 1 mile east-west radius that we initially did. These are businesses that either have significant employee counts, or we see them as a potential source of, or they should be using the. And so although they're outside of the service area or the 1 mile radius, we think we could get some benefit by getting some meetings with them and selling the pass program to them as well. If you remember back in February, we won an APTA marketing award for one of the campaigns we did. Because we won first place, we were then moved forward to compete against other first place winners. And lo and behold, we won the grand award. So, and while I think we will accept the grand award in October, but I think they selected the 2 shortest people to take the photo. But this definitely was a team effort without employees and everyone and riders, you know, allowing us to use their photos and getting to the videos, and none of this would be possible. So who are our customer? You know, we have all these cool things. Who are we going after? So the most recent survey numbers, you'll see May 26, February 26, and then previous ones, November 25 and August 25. So, but we're going to talk about what you see here in May 26. We do have between African American and Hispanic, it's 28 and 24%. White is 40% for May 2026. In terms of age, we do skew young. Obviously, that has a lot to do with the student population. So 18 to 24 is still our key demographic there in terms of age. Male, female, it's 42% to 37%. We skew a little bit more female. In terms of income, income does skew a little lower, but that's in direct correlation with a good bit of our riders are students. And then connections with other systems. Bottom line, in the last 2 weeks, did you connect to other public transit? 74% of our riders said no. So that a key for us is knowing that there's an opportunity there to promote some of the regional access that our system provides. But also in terms of messaging, it identifies the opportunity that we know we have local riders that are staying within Denton County. So there's good to that, but there's also an opportunity to promote the regional connections that we have.
Is there a why to that?
Well, I think from what we've seen, or from what the data shows us, is that most people are riding the systems to travel within Denton County. And so they're not looking to go outside of Denton County into the connections to DART. Some of the comments we've had associate that to timing. You know, our operation time doesn't necessarily match tit for tat with DART. And so that's some of the feedback we've received. And then, let's see, we talked income. So when did all this happen? The survey was conducted in May 4th through May 17th. We had a total of 94 respondents. 65% were between the ages of 18 to 24, as mentioned before. We did see a 12% decrease in service disruptions, which is very good. 72% down to 60%. 83% of riders rated driving positively. That's they either rated a 4 or 5 out of 5. So that was 83%, which is a very high number that we should feel proud about. And then 84% positive rider safety rating. So our next steps. Customer service will be conducting in-person rider surveys from August 31st through September 14th. So they will actually be on the platforms engaging with the customers to get even more information. The areas that we're going to ask questions about: system usability, information access, connectivity, any barriers you have. So that could relate directly to your question. Why aren't you using our system to connect to DART and go beyond Denton County? And then mobility needs. Here's our services, but what services would you like us to provide, or any changes? And then just the overall voice of the rider, talking about sentiment and net promoter score, which we'll get to here now. So this is a simple question, but it's a lot that goes into it. And the question is, how likely are riders to recommend their transit agency to a friend? There's a lot that goes into that. If you go to a business and you already have a positive outlook about that business, and then you walk out, you have a great experience, you walk out and they ask you that question, 9 times out of 10, you're going to say yes. If you go on one day and you just happen to have a bad experience on that one day and they ask you that same question, it might be no. So how do we maintain? Our benchmark has been set at 14, which puts us in the good range. Obviously, our goal is to get into the great and excellent range. But to get there, it's about brand awareness. It goes back to, does a customer have all the information that they need when they're on the platform, when they're on the bus, when they're in the go zone? That makes them feel more comfortable. And so those are the things that we will be consistently working on to ensure that 14 climbs. Again, that data was collected between May 4th and 17th. This one had one less respondent. Shame on him for not answering the question. And so again, this is our baseline going forward. This is the first time we've did it. And so we will be looking to get into the green area on that. So if there's no question, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I just wanted to say that y'all have been doing a really great job on the video content, and what I've been seeing. When I saw that video of the little boy on the train, I think I watched it the first time and I was like, that was really cute, and I watched it again immediately. So kudos on that video.
Thank you.
One question I had when I saw the age, our typical age, is I know some companies will pay influencers to sort of cover their product. Yeah, wherever that went. We skew young.
Yes.
And,
There we go.
you know, that age group is more likely to be on social media where
Yes.
the influencers are. So do you know if there's value in a transit agency approaching influencers and going that route? I don't know. I'm just curious.
We're in the middle of doing some research on it. I've used influencers in other places. There's a positive. You do have to be very careful. Influencers are a very niche audience, right? And then there's also the more popular ones also are more expensive. And so then you have to weigh the cost of what you're paying them. Are you really going to see that in the value and the metrics that we care about? So to answer your question is yes. The hard part that we're working through is which influencer.
Yes.
So we have identified maybe the possibility of identifying influencers that doesn't necessarily know they're influencers just yet. So it's going and finding the customers that are using our services frequently and then engaging them to post more about us. You accomplish what you would with a bona fide influencer, but at a cheaper price, but then also someone that's local that is already using your service. a lot of times when you go to an influencer, you're more interested in their group, their audience. They're not all the time already using your product. So then you have to educate the influencer what to say, how to say it, and it doesn't come across as natural. And so we think that approach would better serve our needs. If that makes sense.
I mean, I rode at Amtrak for the first time, long distance this summer, and I posted about it and I got a ton of questions about how much was it? What was it like? So, yeah, if the right person posts about it or starts posting about it enough, there is potential
Exactly.
for it to kind of get the interest level up for people maybe who haven't tried it yet. Thanks.
I just wanted to say, I love the A-Train corridor study. That's super important. I think we talked about this many years ago, and I don't think it ever actually happened. So I'm really thrilled to see that effort going forward. I wanted to ask, are the cities also, are you pulling the cities into that to kind of help out? And if not, I mean, I think at least our 3 cities would probably be very interested in, I mean, Louisville might be, City Hall might be within a mile of, so, you know, maybe they're in there already, but.
We actually just had a really good conversation with the new, her name slips on my memory at the moment, but with the city of Louisville's new director of communications. In the past 2 weeks, we've had 2 meetings with her in terms of going over what we're doing, not only just for the city of Louisville, but overall. And she has shown some interest in getting more involved with some of our initiatives, which we love. I told her, we're here, we want as much or as little involvement as you want. So to answer your question, yes, we are reaching out to the other cities, to the member cities. Companies that are within city limits that aren't member cities, we do not. But our plan is to reach out to the member cities as we've done with Louisville.
Great, thank you.
I just want to say I've really enjoyed what I'm seeing on social media too. And every time I do, I try to at least minimum go like it, but phenomenal job on the social media presence.
Thank you.
Are you an influencer? Do you want
I guess it depends. I mean, I can certainly influence the flock conversation if I want to, but.
Any other questions? Again, this is discussion item only. No board action required at this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Moving on to item number 6, discuss update on the A-Train enhancement program. Austin, back up.
All right, good morning again, members of the board. One item I wanted to bring up, our program management consultant, H.W. Lochner, has now been acquired by Aegis. So any reference to Lochner, H.W. Lochner, moving forward, it's going to be Aegis. So just wanted to make that note to the board. Where are we at today? So back in February, we gave you all a briefing on revised cost estimate for downtown Carrollton. In May, we brought to you the progress of the design and then talk through the quiet zone assessment in Carrollton. Today, we're going to review with you all the PTC assessment and what came out of that, as well as the service hours expansion study. Moving forward in September, we're going to bring to you all delivery method assessment with some options. And then December, we're planning to have the final cost estimates for the schematic design of downtown Carrollton, preliminary engineering of downtown Carrollton, schematic design of 15-minute headways. And then we'll also talk through funding opportunities and outlook, what that looks like. A little bit of recap from February on the PTC alignment decision. So back in February, we briefed you all. We have an existing alignment to your right, which is essentially what we're operating today. We operate on the same track as our DG&O partner up to Trinity Mills. Beyond Trinity Mills going south, we do not currently operate today. If we did decide to go to downtown Carrollton, we would have to integrate a upgraded PTC to enforce that separation that's needed. And then we also brought to you all back in February this idea of a western alignment, which is on your left. which is essentially separate two separate tracks, so we would not have to upgrade our PTC in that Trinity Mills to downtown Carrollton corridor. So this just gives you a brief update of what we presented with the two different options. So as we look forward into the corridor, as previously mentioned in the previous slide, we have two corridors we're focusing on. The corridor that's from Trinity Mills north to downtown Denton, and then the corridor that's from Trinity Mills south to downtown Carrollton. So as we sit today, as mentioned, we have one shared track from Trinity Mills north, where currently today, the day we must divide the day and schedule there because of that interaction with DG&O freight. Moving to the south to downtown Carrollton, our plan with this additional track is we would operate on independent tracks, so the integration of PTC would not be required in that area. So on this discussion, we're going to focus on the corridor north of Trinity Mills, where we essentially have one shared track. And what we did was we did PTC modeling analysis that gave us scenarios of how do we get to certain conclusions or goals within the program. So we had 8 scenarios, alternatives that we identified. Only 5 of those really met feasibility. So we'll review those with you right now. So today, the baseline is on our existing alignment, we have 30-minute headways from 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. From 10 p.m. on to 4 a.m., DG&O operates in the same corridor. They have full control, full reign of that corridor because we're off of it. So as we look at alternative options, we looked at what we're calling a 2A, which is a 15-minute or a 30-minute headway all-day option. And then again, the DG&O 6-hour window. If we keep this as it sits today, and we move to 15-minute headways, we can still do it. But we do need additional sidings along the corridor. So we do 30 minutes all day today. If we did do 15 minutes to operate with them on the same corridor, we would need to add additional sidings. But the caveat is we would not need to upgrade our PTC. Some other scenarios that we looked at was extending the service hours to 2 a.m., actually to midnight and 2 a.m. Unfortunately, this would require additional track, and it also would require us close coordination with DG&O. We don't think that anything past 12 a.m. is going to work for their operation. We're already condensing their operation to that 6-hour window. For them to get on the corridor, do their switching of trains and freight, and get off of the corridor, that takes quite a bit of time. So shrinking that 6-hour window would be a huge constraint on their operation. But it is feasible. It would just be a challenge. The final option, 1B and 1C, those would be PTC requirements where we operate 15 to 30-minute headways essentially the entire time. And we would go to a different frequency starting at 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. to either a 30-minute or 1 hour. This would require a PTC upgrade. So it's more of a capital investment on our end to do that. And of course, we would have to coordinate closely with DG&O on schedule and time of when we would be integrating their operation with ours with that PTC upgrade. Aegis has rated the 1 hour is the most reliable of those options. So we'd run those headways up until 10 p.m. and then run a 1 hour frequency the rest of the time. So with that said, we started to look at what is the evolution of converting to PTC and versus just extending the EATC. And we've got different costs over time that we've shared with you all from February. The not to exceed range was built on somewhat limited information in the design. So since then, we've surveyed all DG&O fleet and we inspected our own wayside equipment to shore up that number. Three of the February assumptions came off the table. We assumed the entire DGNO fleet would need their ITMS installed, and we actually discovered that they already have this installed on every locomotive. We assumed all of our signal equipment would be replaced, and a significant amount already appears to be reusable. And then we assumed extensive double tracking scenario that was never defined. So those elements were kind of unknowns in February. We've sharpened our pencil there on those. So on option one, where we extend the EATC, that cost went up. I think that's mainly because the scope now carries a computer aided dispatching module and back office updates that weren't in the initial estimate. Plus there's some grade crossing work that has to be done. Converting to ITMS, this actually went down. The range is somewhat wide there. The reason between the 41 and the 80.5 million is really related to VHLC wayside equipment. We will have to do some field surveying in those cabinets and that equipment to make sure that we can actually reuse that. So if we can, it's going to fall on the lower end of that. If we can't, we may have to replace some of that. So worst case scenario, we're looking at the higher end. And then the dual equipment DGNO as option three that number has been confirmed to be in the $22 to $33 million range. So those are the PT scenarios as we have them today, and the associated cost estimates. So with that, I'll move into the two paths of how we move forward with the PTC. The option one is essentially we would take our PTC system and just extend it down to downtown Carrollton on this new western alignment. This allows us to take minimal infrastructure investment, get to downtown Carrollton and really not impact DGNO operation at all. Option two would be to convert our system to IETMS, which is that $41 to $80 million investment that we were talking about. This would allow us to operate on the same corridor in the same time window. Temporal separation would remain available through option one. So we wouldn't have to convert. Signals and crossings the second bullet here, signals and crossing would be built to IETMS. So the good news here is we would put in an investment that essentially would be built with option one that would be transferred over to option two. And then option three on the right, this is the dual equipping option of DGNO locomotives with our current PTC system. And that price range is the $22 to $33 million. The caveat here on this one, we feel that this option right now is not viable. The bullets here outline why we feel it's not a good idea. The regional interoperability with DGNO is not there with EATC. I think we're one of two railroad operators that actually operate on this PTC system. We don't get 15-minute headways, so we would only achieve limited expanded service hours with this option. Does not include wires crossings. There is a obsolescence concern that we have with our current PTC, so that still remains unresolved with this option. Temporal separation would be given up. That would require FRA approval. None of the locomotive investment that we would be putting into these DGNO locomotives would be reusable towards the IETMS. And then at the end of it, option two is still a requirement afterwards. So in order for us to extend service hours along the span of those hours, we still would have to upgrade. So really nothing is deferred with this option three. Any questions on that? That's a lot of information on PTC. No? Okay. Aegis and DCTA did some assessments of the DGNO locomotives to understand what the constraints and challenges were in that field environment of adding our equipment to their locomotives. So couple bullet points here. They have 27 locomotives of multiple types. Each of those locomotives would need their own design on PTC, and some of those may not be equipable at all. We do have a physical constraint, as you can see in the pictures. Hood compartments already carry the current PTC. ATC coils must occupy space that we're not sure if they actually have the space to do that. Human factors approval. This is a workload study that would have to be done for operators to understand switching of the two systems on the corridor. That would have to take place, and that could be also difficult to move to FRA requirements. Crashworthiness study would have to be redone with no guarantee that that would be approved. And then as far as the fleet access, this is probably the biggest challenge here, is every unit would have to be released for DGNO for survey design, verification, and installation of this additional PTC. So that's a schedule that we would not control, and a huge coordination undertaking for us. So summarize this, this is why we feel this dual equipping option is no longer on the table for us to explore. The good news is I think we've located, or we've identified some additional options if we want to proceed with option one, just extending on the Western Alignment our current EATC. How do we deal with expanded service hours in the interim? So two options we've come up with: late night bus bridge, which would essentially be one bus at all Stebbins stations, going from that station to downtown Denton or the interim stations. We could also have three buses and group those stations and deliveries, and I'll show you all a graphic of what that looks like here in a minute. This would allow us to serve all the A train stations. And then we could have a grouping scenario where we essentially have three buses, hopefully improving the trip time in half. Option 2B is utilizing GOZO vans to make that expanded service hours work. So we're anticipating 9 vans across the 6 stations. We would essentially assume about 4 riders per van, 36 seats total. And then the beauty about this is we already have the contracted service with VIA. It's a matter of just getting the additional vans to be implemented, and maybe some of these vans are idle in those times at certain durations, and we can utilize them for that option. So visually, what does that look like? Option 2A, again, you've got one bus. It stops at each station. Unfortunate thing is if you're going from downtown Carrollton all the way to DTC, it's quite a bit of a ride. Option 2A would essentially deploy 3 buses. One bus would go to Training Mills and Hebron. One bus would go from downtown Carrollton to Old Town, and then it would drop off and then go to Holland Village. And then the final bus would just be a straight shot express to Med Park, and then it would stop in downtown Denton. Again, option 2B deploys GoZone vehicles at downtown Carrollton, and they're comprised of one bus for the near stations, or so one van for the near stations, and then 2 vans for the stations further out to help out with that ride time. Any questions on these options?
Yes.
Are we gonna see a cost comparison on these at some point?
Yes, that's what we're working on right now to see resources, cost, how we can do this. Yes.
Without cost, I know that option 2A, as a female, standing there for up to 84 minutes is really scary at night. So I would certainly support something that's higher frequency. I'd be curious to see more in terms of whether it was bus or GoZone, but the single bus doesn't seem as viable in terms of safety and comfort of especially female riders.
I was really hesitant to, when I was looking at this, early on, your very first alternatives about extending PC, and I kept thinking to myself, do we have any proof that you're gonna even have any significant demand to use the train? And then when I got to this, I said, well, this is perfect. Maybe using VIA, we can test it and see if really there's any demand for people to do out there. So, yeah, I would prefer something like the 2B when we can use our vans. And then we determine if it's even worth investing $4-5 million on the positive train control. Thank you.
So with the positive train control, we've been talking about that for a long time, and we feel like that is something that we're probably gonna have to do at some point, right?
Right, the obsolescence of the current system is in the long-range plan currently for replacement in the mid-30s.
Right, so when we're talking about the interim options, we're really talking about the time between when the extension is completed and whenever we're gonna do these PTC improvements.
Right.
And we've got them in 35 through 37.
Correct.
First of all, I'm super excited that the cost of that has, been cut in half. So that's very exciting. But again, to the point that I made earlier, just wonder if we continue to kick the can down the road, if that number is gonna grow as well, and how would the cost of providing this interim service compare to what if we pulled some of the PTC stuff forward and maybe financed it?
Right, and that's the trade-off conversation that we have to have. So slide 85, $5 million to just extend the current system and get to downtown Carrollton as soon as possible. You could pull the trigger and convert the whole system to IETMS for anywhere from the $40 to $80 million range. But the extension of EATC does set some framework for being able to convert to IETMS in the future. And your question is, well, how much is IETMS going to cost in 2035 versus doing it right now? And then how many bus bridges can we run for $40 to $80 million over what kind of period of time? That is the analysis we have to do in order for you all to make the best decision. That's what we're framing up for you towards the end of the year.
I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, yes, ma'am. As are we. It's going to be great math. Great math.
Yeah, I think the point, I appreciate the feedback. The go zone is, gives us the data to your point, Melina, to make decisions on how many vans we deploy. Maybe we just deploy one van, in that first stage, and then we get data back. We did have some data back, I believe I shared in the May presentation, where ridership after 10 p.m. on the entire region corridor drops on DART, Metro, and ours. So it actually drops, I think, around 8 or 9 p.m. So there is data to already support that we don't have high ridership at those late hours. But this is kind of a bridge to allow us to do minimal investment, get data back to really see what that demand is.
And the other point I wanted to make about with the demand that is driven by, it's certainly related to that time frame. So, I think if we had a single bus that was going to take you 84 minutes, that's probably going to it's going to show our lower demand because people like me are going to be like, well, I don't want to wait that long.
Right.
I think if we were looking at option 2B, whatever we would need to do to kind of mimic the timing, that would be what our ultimate goal for our position would give us the best idea of what the actual demand would be.
And that's what that orange option with the 3 buses, that's what that allows you to do. But we got to do the schedule plan for how many buses do you actually need to be able to make that timetable? Because that's just the one direction, and they got to return, and what happens if a bus gets stuck in traffic or whatever it might be. So if there's an accident late at night, which happens. So. Okay.
And we have to ensure that these buses exist in our fleet plan.
That's right.
They may not.
Great caveat. These are not in our fleet plan. Correct.
And how much for those buses?
Yeah, I was gonna ask that as well. Of course, there's also night construction, you know,
Right.
the 35.
Yeah. And are the drivers there to
Yep,
drive all
PPL
these things?
operators,
Yeah.
yes. Well, welcome to transit.
All right, so when we talk about the interim options on the program today, we briefed on the curb and speed improvements with the minor track work for the increased speed. We are awaiting an FRA approval, and hopefully get that in the next couple weeks, so we can finish that project up. The second phase, downtown Carrollton, we talked about, that's moving in forward to design. And then expand service hours, we talked about those interim solutions. Looking into the future, we talked about the PTC conversion. This is that phase B, expanded service hours, 15-minute headway, track work, and then the frequency change. So what we're setting up is essentially this phased approach of how we can move these things along in interim steps, create the right investment at the right time without essentially with moving all these elements in the entire program forward. So next steps, path forward on this. So we're going to proceed on the Western alignment to extend the existing AETC system. And for now, not focus on PTC upgrades immediately. We're going to program the IETMS conversion as a future phase, with knowing that what we're doing in option one, extending it, actually puts infrastructure in there to convert in the future. So that's a win-win there. And then look at what that expanded service hours looks like from a bus bridge or go zone, getting more into the cost of it and then the resources required to do each of those. So as we move forward into the downtown Carrollton design update, just wanted to share with you all the picture of what we have going on here from Trinity Mills north. As you all know, we operate along the same corridor as DGNO, we just explained. Also to the south of Trinity Mills, there's quite a bit going on. We plan to operate down there. DGNO has full reign of that corridor, as we mentioned. When we get to downtown Carrollton, lots of converging operations are happening. We have DGNO Spur that's coming off of their main line. Our plan to extend the A train. We have Green Line that is elevated, Silver Line coming east and west, and then BNSF also has a line that's converging there too. One thing we also wanted to make note of was this International Paper site, which is on the very bottom right, side that has the red box in it. Recently, we were notified that International Paper is closing their downtown Carrollton location. What that means from our standpoint is that is the only customer that DGNO operates to the south of downtown Carrollton. So what that may do is allow us to look at the position of our station, the position or alignment of the extension to downtown Carrollton differently in the event that DGNO no longer operates down there and has no need to go further south. So with that, couple things. We've advanced the existing the Western alignment far enough to get this DW water line, 66-inch water main, as far enough away as we can to our piers. We've done additional potholing that confirms the distance right now. The most constraint distance is just over 3 feet. As you can see in section 2, DWU has mentioned to us that 3 foot is about as minimum as they're comfortable with us putting our pier next to them. So that has progressed to a certain point. As that was moving forward, we found out about this International Paper closing. So on the right side of the slide, there's some examples of what that alignment could look like if that service to International Paper were no longer needed. So the diagram on the left is essentially what our current plan is with the water main. And as you can see, it's right up against our downtown Carrollton station. We have our existing alignment to the right of that. And then DGNO, as you can see in their orange, they operate all the way south of that today. Moving on to the diagram to the right, if that spur was the last line of that alignment, we could essentially move that alignment to the west a little bit, get the Carrollton station more aligned closer to the green line and silver line, and have the station be essentially where in a perfect world we would want it. So a lot of stuff to unpack on International Paper closing. We actually met with DART last week to explain kind of our thoughts around this. So they're going to go back to some agreements they have with DGNO. We've talked with the city of Carrollton. They're excited about this opportunity and what that means. So more to come on this. We just wanted you all to have a glimpse of what's working on the station location and alignment in this corridor that we have going on. Any questions on this?
Last time we talked about this, I asked about, is that water line not in an easement? Because I'm actually shocked.
We have not found evidence of an easement in all of our conversations with the city of Carrollton.
I'm shocked that that's not in an easement. But here's the thing, is that infrastructure does not last forever. At some point, that line's going to have to be replaced. And if we've got a platform practically right on top of it, I'm really nervous what that means. How are they going to get to that line to replace it or even to repair it?
Right. So on the design, you can see the cross section down there. The team has been really diligent to not build structural elements over it. It's really just the slab that's over top of that water line. That's if the station is in that location, that is the best that we can do to get the station in there. I'm convinced of that at this point. A lot of energy on this over the course of the last several months. This is why the closing of International Paper is so potentially important. Now, I was going to say this at the end, but I'll say it right now. There are things that we do not have control over as DCTA. One of them is the lease with Dallas Area Rapid Transit, which we have requested to be extended. We do not have control over the timing of that or the terms and conditions, and we're working on it. The second thing is in order for that station to be moved to the east, that line has to be abandoned or something has to be filed through the Surface Transportation Board, a federal agency, to end rail service at a shipper facility. I'm not a STB lawyer. Those exist. We need to find one and go through that process, but that is a DART-led process to undertake. So it's a tight corridor, lots going on. The closure of the facility could help it potentially, but we don't have control over the outcome. I would say though, we have done as much research as we know how to do to see if an easement exists. We haven't found one yet. And in the design, you would have to, if the water main broke and they had to fix it right there, slabs would have to be removed, passengers would have to be detoured around to get to the platform, all that sort of stuff. We're trying to design this platform to be as light duty as possible. And if it gets tucked up under the green line, then there's already structure overhead. It's the structure of the green line elevated track. But the region, the COG is already talking about, well, how does the A train interline with the green line and operate on the green line infrastructure? And how does the A train make the curve to go directly to the silver line? So this could be a temporary condition, and temporary in this case means 10 to 15 years until whatever the next phase of regional rail looks like down here. But all the things you're saying are absolutely true. This is a tight spot to put a station.
But I'm assuming DWU has to approve this, right?
We do not.
We don't know.
We have had conversations with their technical staff on the engineering review. They have not given us any approval or denial. And then we are doing the research to find out who has what right to do what in this area.
Yeah. And we probably don't know how deep that line is, but if it's 66 inches.
No, we
pretty
do,
deep,
we
right?
potholed it.
Yeah, only.
From to the top.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then that's what, the 66 inch, that's what, 6 feet? Is that right?
Almost.
Okay, so 5.5 feet. So if something happened and they have to get to it, they have to dig down over 10 feet,
Right. And
right? So
Dig down each side.
yeah, that's,
It's probably a hand dig too, I would think, or very careful operator. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the alternative is $80 million for IETMS to do this on the freight line.
but, okay, and so you're also saying that there is a possibility that we could build this western alignment and then 10 to 15 years from now, there could be something where we're gonna do something different now.
Well, the western alignment is still necessary in order to make the turn on the silver line to the east and the west. Who knows what happens in the future, but
There's so many moving parts.
there are many moving parts to this, and I think what we've been able to do is provide clarity on a path, and we're beginning to have clarity on what are the pros and cons of some of these, but before you all have to make any decisions, we'll have to just flesh all those out. But learning that PTC interoperability is not recommended is a big step forward. That eliminates a number of different alternatives for us.
But with the service ending, and you can potentially move over to the east on the existing rail line and put your station there.
Correct. That somewhat solves the problem.
Somewhat solves it, because that rail line has existed for years. And that water line, which was probably built around 1980 or so.
Right.
Was built there and the rail line existed.
Yeah, it was built in 1980 or so. That's coming up on it.
Yeah, it's coming up fast.
You know, when I used to work there back in 2000, they were talking about another line of 72 that they want to put down Broadway. And that hasn't gone anywhere. These things take decades. It's just a long process.
If that freight line to International Paper were able to be abandoned and the station could move over, I think it solves the conflict.
And the issue now becomes what you're talking about, where it would have to be abandoned and whoever has the rights to that would have to relinquish it. How long could that take?
Well, that's DART that owns the rights.
Right.
Is it DART that owns the rights?
DART is the owner of the railroad. Yes.
Okay, that little spur they do?
Yes.
Okay,
And
so DART and DGNO have an agreement for that operate, okay.
them to operate. And historically, when they were building the Green Line, they were looking at abandoning service from Bell Line down to, I forget, through Farmers Branch. So that was in their plans. But they couldn't get all the people to leave. International Paper still had service, so they had to keep a spur. So I'm hoping that will make it easier when you talk to the Surface Transportation or whatever the name of the board is to, formally close that.
Yes.
Agreed.
Still,
We're railroading now.
All right, not to make things more complex. So
Hold my beer. Hold my beer.
we do have an existing timber trestle bridge over Hutton Branch that currently is operating that DGNO freight line corridor. Currently, this bridge sits under the 100-year floodplain, or actually, it sits below the 100-year floodplain. So when we talk about the western alignment, that has us building a new structured bridge on that. The impacts of that could impact this existing trestle. So what we're working with right now is if we build this new western alignment bridge, what impacts does it have to this trestle bridge? And would we have to rehab or upgrade or replace this trestle bridge? If that's the case, then does it make sense to partner with RTC or FRA to maybe build a two-track bridge here that would encompass DGNO's track and our track? So nothing to decide here, just another layer of complexity that we have to work through in the design. So right now, the hydraulic study that the city of Carrollton's provided us, we're running engineering calculations on it to determine how much flow is restricted with our new bridge and what that potentially would impact this trestle bridge. So that's the update on that bridge. Any questions? All right, so finally, we plan to come to you all next month with delivery method assessment. We're looking at what was briefed to you all back in, I believe, February with the different alternative delivery methods. Also, we'll have an update on the design of how that's progressing with this information we've shared with you all today. And then in December, we're planning to have these final cost estimates completed and go through what that funding picture would look like. So with that, that's the conclusion of my update.
Yeah, thank you, Austin. I think we have eliminated several variables, or we have solved for several variables. There are still variables to be solved for, but thank you all for your patience in this as we've kind of walked through this all together. So thanks, Austin.
Right, quick question. What's the timing on international paper?
I've only seen what I've read in news articles, and it sounded like it was imminent, like within 12 months.
Okay.
But we've had conversations with the city of Carrollton. We've had conversations with DART, and like I said, I'm not a STB lawyer, and so we really need to get oriented with DART and whoever take for that to have that conversation, and really the DART board as well.
Thanks.
On item number 7, discuss an update on McKinney Urban Transit District Demand Response Contract Service Opportunities. Mr. Christina.
Thank you very much. This will be relatively brief from my perspective, but happy to talk about whatever you all would like. So we received a request for presentations from the McKinney Urban Transit District, which is actually administered through the city of McKinney. The McKinney Urban Transit District has a board that represents cities within the service area that's highlighted there in yellow: Salina, Lowry Crossing, McKinney, Melissa, Princeton, and Prosper. This is an elderly and disabled paratransit type service, similar to what we do in Allen, Fairview, and in the city of Frisco. It operates 6 to 6 Monday through Friday, and then 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on the weekends. You see the service eligibility there. It's an operation currently operated by DART. Historically, I understand and have seen news articles, DCTA operated this service from 2017 to 2021. DCTA declined to further the service in 2021, so DART took it over, and now the MUTD is getting to their end of their contract with the DART board and is looking to understand what their alternatives are. So McKinney staff issued this request for presentation on August 4th and said, we'd like for you to come with any questions you have by September 2nd. We'll give you answers by September 14th. We want you to submit a presentation to us by the 21st and then deliver that presentation on October the 5th, really around what would it look like for your agency to provide the service. They sent this to DART, DCTA, and an organization called Star Transit, which I understand is a small nonprofit type provider serving Dallas County, similar maybe to SPAN of Denton County, but I'm really not that familiar with them. The current service profile that we can see based on DART board updates, they're delivering about 75,000 trips a year. 80% of those are ambulatory, 20% are wave trips on a dedicated fleet. 80% are non-dedicated TNC trips, meaning they're transitioned or farmed out to Uber and Lyft. And they range from anywhere from 0 to 23 miles, although the 23-mile trips are only 5%. Almost 2/3 of them are 7 miles or less, very similar to our current service. today, because of the timeline that you see up at the top, I'm asking for feedback on staff preparing and submitting a service plan and presentation in response to this request. Because of the timing of it, we would not have the opportunity to come back to the board for an approval of our proposal before it goes over. However, with direction from you, we can provide a service and financial proposal to them that is compliant with our board policies. As we've talked through extensively in the last couple of years, I feel really confident that we can navigate in that manner. And then any proposal we would provide, we would mark as non-binding because the DCTA board would retain the authority to approve or reject any agreements that would have to result if we were selected to provide this service. And then obviously we would keep you apprised on the status as we move forward. We have submitted a request for information based on their direction just a couple of days ago. And so we expect that they'll bring back answers based on that timeline. We have heard some input that says maybe their relationship and conversation with DART is changing and they may get extended for another year. If they do that, they're going to cancel this procurement, which would take this conversation off the table for now. The MUTD board meets on Tuesday to be able to make that decision. So we'll know then if this is going to go forward or not. But that I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, again, just looking for feedback to say we can navigate under these terms.
Well, let's assume that they weren't having friendly discussions with DART. What does staff see as the pros and cons of DCTA getting involved in this conversation?
From a pro perspective, I think we see opportunity for enhancing customer service in the cities of Frisco, Allen, and Fairview for people who have desire to go into the McKinney Urban Transit District area and maybe are not able to currently. I think also there's opportunity for efficiencies where MUTD trips are currently going into these other contract services cities that we don't have. From a con perspective, I want to find a way to be in a partnership mode with DART rather than a competitive mode. And so I think there's an opportunity for us there to figure out who does what on this and in the region and all that sort of thing. So those are the two things that come to mind. There's an opportunity for efficiency and expanding transit services in North Texas and expanding interoperability like we've talked about, but we also want to do it in a way that's cooperative with our partners in the region.
Experiences I've had with people. Hardly anybody that lives in a yellow, pink, green, teal. This has a doctor in there.
Right.
And the doctors are in the yellow, pink, and so the people that live in the yellow, pink, and so
right
have doctors somewhere else.
Yes.
So it's major hospitals are scattering everywhere. I just heard the other day that Texas Resources has gone to Plano, up above Plano, almost in Frisco, but they were in Richardson.
Yeah. And we also reach into Plano. Some of our Frisco and Allen and Fairview rides go into Plano as well. So that is the dynamic that the region is facing is people live in one place, they have doctors in another, and they need transportation to get to and from. So how do we bridge that gap? We think that we've got some pretty good ideas on how to do that. And so that's why we would want to engage in this in accordance with our policies.
And just a quick comment, I think, this is a great example of how useful our policy is, so that, whenever you have an opportunity such that, you can bring it to us and say, yes, no, without all the details. And we can say, as long as you're following, the policy that we've all agreed on, then, we're supportive of that, so that we can make sure we can go after an opportunity, but making sure that if the policy is followed, that it doesn't have any negative impacts on our current system. So just wanted to give a little shout out for I feel comfortable with the policy as we have it. I think it's strong. And so I'm supportive of you seeing, let's put something together and see.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you very much for that. If that is the feedback from the board, then we'll proceed in that direction. Thank you.
I'll just add to that of, I'm good with y'all, potentially presenting, but I'm also okay if you kind of feel like that might be a bad move in terms of our relationship with DART.
Right.
I'm also okay with y'all maybe making that judgment to pull back.
We gotta figure out how to navigate that the right
Yeah.
way. Okay. Thank you.
All right, item number 8, discuss local regional updates and legislative updates. Anything there?
No, sir.
And with that, I think there are some informational safety reports included in the packet. I think we have to drain that at all.
Nope.
Moving on to future agenda items and board member requests. Are there any? All right, so then, our next board meeting will be September 24th. Are there any items of community interest anybody wants to share? And I'm assuming we do not need to convene any executive session.
No, sir.
With that, we are adjourned at 12:27.